So in theory, I'm live again on a new stream because, yeah, I'm sorry. Nothing seems to be working just right today for some reason. And I hope I'm live now. I have no idea. For some reason, I don't see the chat. Let me see this. I think I fixed it now. But I can't be sure. I hope it's working. I think it's working. I'm not sure. I can see the chat now, so maybe we're good. Hey, it's working. Best of a robot, I hope. I'm just watching the chat too. So, yeah, and I'm no longer a robot. Yes, let's do this. So, as I was telling you, my exam went really bad and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't edit. I still can't really read. So, I'm doing this Spookathon wrap up live because I don't want to miss a day of vlogging this Vlogtober. So here we are. As you know, all of last week was Spookathon and I was going to read everything and I kind of sort of failed. I was planning to read 4 books, 5 if possible. I picked the wrong books because all of them were kind of long. The longest one was about 550 pages, and then the second longest was close to 400, and so on. In short, bad move, Alina, bad move. So let's start with what I read. The one book I completed was Morningstar by Pierce Brown, and this was the biggest one of all. It had 23 hours of audio in audiobook format and 550 or a bit more pages, depending on which edition you see. This was a lovely read. I've enjoyed every second of it. I actually went to Carrefour for my grocery shopping, listening to Morningstar, and I was in the middle of this huge store and crying like an idiot because it was a touching scene. It was just, I couldn't help it, and I'm a crybaby, so that was fun. Weirdly enough, I chose that because I was supposed to explore childhood fear with one of the books I've chosen, and I thought of Morningstar because it happens in space. It's sort of a space opera in a dystopian future society, and I thought, you know, space kind of looks like dark and depressing, so it's a good take on it. But Morningstar ending up being the most the most gory and thrilling book of all of them. I mean, there were bloody deaths and precise depictions of how people were dismembered and punched in a way that would break their bones and smash their heads. And okay, it was gory, it was spooky from that perspective, so it was a great read for Spookathon. I got that finished sometime on Friday, I think, or Saturday morning, I can't remember, but it was towards the end of the week. And then I started listening to Relentless, which was the close to 400 book. This was a thriller by Dean Koontz. It was my first Dean Koontz mystery, and my friend Alina Chincan, thank you again, recommended it to me, and it was a lovely read. This was the book where I went the furthest. I listened to about 80% of it, so about 8 hours of the 10 plus it had. So my audiobook listening time alone was 30 hours, which is a lot if you stop and think about it. And then I also read parts of The Jackal House by Anna Butler, and let me make sure I double check the author's name, and Dark Days by Sarah Hall. The Jackal's House is steampunk gay romance, and it has a touch of adventure and exploring, and it's set part in an alternate universe, London, called Londinium, which is a steampunk universe, and Egypt, where they are digging up stuff in the desert, as they did back then, only with better technology and planes to take you from the UK, well, not exactly UK, pretend UK, to Egypt. And I got about half of that read, and from Dark Days I read about 30 to 40%. I think I stopped at about 35%. Since Spookathon ended, I finished Dark Days, I finished Relentless, and I also read Dark Ties, which is the second book in the Legions series, because Dark Days just didn't feel complete in what the romantic subplot was involved. Everything else was nicely tied. It was a standalone story. You can just read that and stop there. But I just wanted to read the second book to find out what happened to the, main couple, because I just wanted to know. So in 2 days and a half, I read 2.5 books, which is more than I read in an entire week at readathon, at this readathon. But that's understandable, because in terms of pages, I actually had time to count them, and I read about 1,050 pages, which is a lot for a week where I worked full time and also worked during the weekend, so it was crazy busy. I was finishing a writing project, and yeah, you all know that from the vlogs. But let's get back into the books, because I've ranted about Morning Star throughout the vlogs, and I've told you all about it. So now let's move on to the other books. First, Relentless, which I just finished today. I expected a thriller. I didn't expect everything else that came with the book. Honestly, I just knew it was a good book because Alina said so, and I kind of skimmed through the blurb, which I also did for Dark Days, and The Jackal's House. I didn't even read the blurb because I just knew it was a book written by Anna and I wanted to read it. So that's about it. Yeah, no, I actually hadn't been sleeping, Alex, so that's why my eyes reacted so badly. 2 nights ago, we had super heavy rain, and that kept me from sleeping because it was just too loud. It was like drums being beaten in my head, and I couldn't sleep. And then last night I stayed up reading. So yes, totally my fault for how my eyes reacted. I just didn't expect it. So, it's kind of like my eyes forced me to take a break today because I couldn't do much. So they got back at me. So yeah, like I said, I didn't read much of the Relentless blurb, and basically the story features an author who's a best-selling author. He's married to another writer. His wife writes children's book, and they have a son who they nicknamed Spooky because he's a bit different. He's a genius, and he has a dog that they named Lassie, of course. A dog that's a rescue. And his family leads a pretty normal life, except for the part where they're raising a genius who is probably 10 times smarter than both of them. But other than that, it's just a normal family. And then the unexpected, well, the totally expected for a writer happens. This guy gets a really bad review from a really popular reviewer. And this particular critic is known for his very harsh reviews. What he's not known for is for trying to kill more than an author's career. So this part of trying to, stay alive while incriminating the actual murderer was something I did expect. The sort of paranormal, horror-y, supernatural elements. I didn't expect those. I expected it to get scary at some point, but it felt like things happened that couldn't be explained. It could be someone's imagination, or it could be more. And this just degenerated into crazy science and some weird things that kept happening. And the killer has this supernatural way of finding everybody and getting to everyone. And he's never even suspected by the police. And when I thought that would be all, and it was still a thrilling story, I enjoyed it. I liked the plot, I liked the investigation, I liked the adventure part of it. And then it just hits you with a bit of a philosophical theme that's pretty much explained more at the end. And when that ties into the other elements of the book, you realize the crazy stuff was quite deliberate, and it just served a great purpose in explaining this more philosophical theme of the book. So I enjoyed it immensely. I've never read a thriller quite like this one, and now I want to read more from Dean Koontz, of course, because why not? The Jackal's House, it's the only one I didn't manage to finish yet, and I plan to finish, well, not today, because I can't read today, but I'm planning on finishing it tomorrow. It's also quite interesting story. There's a bit of adventure, there's a bit of mystery. I don't want to tell you a lot about it, because this is the second book in a series, which I didn't realize at first. I just wanted to read it. So, I'm afraid that if I talk too much about what actually happens in the book, I will spoil the first book for those who haven't read it. So I'll just say it's an interesting tale. The world is very detailed. I think Anna Butler does the same as she does in her sci-fi world building. Everything is really detailed and nicely intertwined with the story. It's not info dump, but it does explain everything you need to know, and it does so in a really easy to understand and pleasant manner. The characters are quite interesting. The humor that the POV character shows is quite charming, and I've enjoyed it immensely. And yet, I'm really not sure about steampunk. It takes me a lot to get into the world. I don't know why. There's just some sort of disconnect for some unspecified reason. I'm still enjoying the story very much, and I'm hoping that if I read more steampunk, I'll warm up to it more, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm just waiting to finish that to give a verdict, and I will include a more detailed review of the book in my October reading wrap up, because that seems fair. And now Dark Days. I just skimmed through the blurb again, and like I said when I presented my TBR, this was a book I got on Amazon. I think it was during a free promotion or some price drop, I don't know. But I got it, it was on my Kindle, it has an interesting cover. So I thought I'd read it at some point. I chose it because of the dark in the title, because it served as my choice of book for the read a book with a spooky word in the title challenge, which I failed because I didn't finish the book. But let's forget that. There were mentions of werewolves and vampires and some orphans, which I thought to be literal orphans, but the world is a lot more intricate than that. The world is a present-day US, but in an alternate universe where werewolves and vampires live out in the open, and there's a third supernatural species which are called legions. And legions, it took me a while to figure out what they were, because there's a lot of descriptors in the beginning telling you what they can do and sort of what they are. But it takes quite a lot of reading and getting into the book to find out that this is a species that was created by demons. And it had parts of vampire DNA, parts of werewolf DNA, and some other demonic stuff. And this was an impressive species that was stronger than anyone else. But of course, as it happens in any group, there was a lot of infighting, and there were two major sections. The factions, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm super tired. The two factions are the open legions, which are fine with all the other species, and the annihilists who want to kill all the other species because reasons which I haven't really gotten to after 2 books. I really don't know why they're so intent on killing other species other than some xenophobia that's embedded in their DNA. And it's part nurture, part nature, because you can be born in an annihilist family and not be one. I don't know how that works yet. And I've read 2 books in the series, and I still don't know that, but that's just details. The orphan concept, that was interesting. The point is, legions are divided into families, just like werewolves are divided into packs, and vampires are divided into clans. And whenever one of these smaller groups decides one of their own is too dangerous or too powerful to control, or just, you know, out of control, they would orphan that person. That means an orphan person can no longer be part of a family or a pack or a clan of vampires. And they are all exiled to Seattle, which Seattle is a sort of a prison city. Once you get to Seattle, you can live your life however you want, minus some things that if you ever do, you're killed on site for them, which wouldn't apply to others in your species, of course, and you can never leave the city. You can get furlough from those who have orphaned you, and you can go outside for up to 3 weeks, I think. So this is the basic world setting, but it took me reading through most of book 1 to get some details, but you won't find out why demons created legions until far into book 2, which works given what happens in book 2, but I think it could have been implied earlier. I don't know. For me, it's just too much to expect someone to read through 2 books to find out what an entire species' purpose was in being created. The main character, well, the protagonist in this story is a sire who's a legion. She's been orphaned for 7 years and she lives in Seattle. And something starts happening in the city. Some annihilists come in and they start attacking legions, and the werewolves and vampires go crazy. And at a certain point, a child is abducted. A family from outside Seattle that a sire has connections with through her cousin comes to help, and a lot of adventure and fighting ensues. God damn it, I can no longer talk tonight, apparently. So this was a fascinating read in terms of how the world was built and how the characters were created. They were all very distinct for such a large cast. But I don't know, some parts of it felt off, even if I liked it enough to get the second book and find out what happened to a sire and her love interest, who is a legion called Loki. But some things were a bit off, and the first one that hit me was this thing about not knowing exactly what the hell is going on with legions, why they exist, what they are, what they do. It was just a bit of a mess until I figured it out. And the second one was that this book was filled with typos and grammatical errors, and it takes a lot of them for me to start getting annoyed. I mean, if there are a few on every page, that's a bit much for me. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it was 1 a page, but still, that's too much. If I start paying attention to them, I think they would upset other people a lot more. What I did like was that when you were talking about Seattle and people living there, it was a given that they will have a tragic backstory. the family that comes to help Osaya and her friends. That's a family that's made up of kids that were either abused or abandoned by their family, and Loki has just adopted them all. So it's a given that they will have tragic backstories again. But it's somehow a thing that they don't dwell on a lot. Not even Osaya, she's made her peace with whatever happened to her and why her family is, both of them on her father and her mother's side, have decided to orphan her. But it never ever turns into a pissing contest and let's see whose past is more tragic. I really liked how the mating bond was viewed and what losing a mate meant. I'm not going to give you any more details because you should read the book. But it was an okay book. It was an interesting story. I read the second book in the series. I'm not sure I'm going any further. The third and fourth book focus on different characters, not on Osaya and Loki. And I think I've kind of had enough. I read book 2 also to find out if anything happens in the writing and the editing, and it didn't seem any cleaner, which was kind of disappointing. So I think I'm going to stop there, but I definitely think you should give it a try. The thing is, like, I think if I would have read this with books I'd enjoy less, maybe I wouldn't be as harsh to it. But after Morning Star and Relentless and The Jackal's House, which are all spotless and better written, this was a bit of a letdown. The pacing, however, was really good. It had some slower moments, and it was super thrilling at times to just watch the entire adventure as it happened. Well, read, you know what I mean. But after Morning Star, I think I was already used to such a crazy pace, and Morning Star is so much nicer and more up my alley, and it's all very well planned out, and nothing is there without a reason. Everything that's been thrown in the book and in the entire series at some point is tied together at the end. And I think Dark Days isn't there, and I doubt it would get there through the next 2 books, which feature completely different characters. But all in all, it was an enjoyable reading list for this Spookathon. And despite my initial freak out at the end of Spookathon, when I realized I didn't finish as many books as I wanted to, I actually did pretty well. I'm happy with the over 1,000 pages in a week count that I pulled off, especially since I was working all the time during that week. And it was a really chill and relaxed and laid back sort of a readathon. I think that was a message that the 3 organizers drove home really well for me. And when I was thinking of my wrap-up, I actually filmed this after seeing their live show about Spookathon and the discussion on the body read, and I realized everybody was pretty relaxed. Nobody was stressing about how much they read. And I decided to do the same. I read more than I would have read in such a busy week in different circumstances, and I would have wished to have a lighter workload for Spookathon so that I could maybe join the Instagram challenges and so on. But I knew that wasn't going to happen from the start, so I never even tried to do the challenges. It was super rewarding for me in the end. I've had tons of fun. I can't wait to do it again next year. And actually, the organizers were talking about doing a Spookathon club, which if it happens, I'm definitely joining because I need more thrillers in my life. And I'm glad I'm back into reading mysteries and thrillers because Spookathon kind of inspired those. Oh, and in what my 5th book, which was a stretch goal, is concerned, well, Model Citizen will have to wait until the end of this week so I can read it, and it will be included in my October wrap-up for books that I've read. And yeah, that's all that's happened at Spookathon. I had tons of fun. So if you're watching this after it's posted and you know of any readathons that are like in the same direction as Spookathon, and by that I don't mean thrillers or anything spooky, I mean something that's chill and relax. I would like to know about them, and even if they're not so chill, I would like to know about more readathons so that I can maybe up my reading, because I have a lot of books to read and review, plus all the books I want to read. So I find this quite motivating and helpful. Maybe not in November though, because NaNoWriMo is happening and that will be its own beast. But yeah, do let me know if you know of any, and I hope you've enjoyed this impromptu live stream, or that you're enjoying watching it after it's posted on YouTube. I will add a few links to Spookathon and my own vlogs in the description after the video is processed by YouTube. And I managed to post a video today for Vlogtober, so I haven't screwed that up yet. There are 5 more days to go, and I will see you with a new video tomorrow. Hopefully all this shit with my eyes clears by tomorrow and I can do a proper video and edit it like a normal person. But yeah, thank you so much for being here with me, and I shall see you very soon. Bye!